Well, hello lovely humans, and welcome back to my channel. As we are getting into the thick of engagement season, I just want to say a quick hello to all of the new faces who are here. Congratulations, my guess is you got engaged somewhere around the holidays, and you landed here because you're like, I don't know what the heck to do. So first of all, congratulations, we're so happy you've come to join the club. And my name is Jamie Wolfer. I'm a wedding planner with offices both in Southern California and Central Texas, and I'm here to help you plan your wedding each and every single week. So jump on down there, hit that subscribe button, be sure to ring the bell so you know every Tuesday when my video goes live, you can get a notification for it and be that much closer to planning your wedding masterfully. In this week's video, I really wanted to highlight some online resources, some free online resources that I feel like really don't get talked about enough. And I really wanted to showcase them. And they're not going to be the typical free online resources that you might guess that I'd be talking about right now, because, well, frankly, I've got a bone to pick with them. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. How's that for a cliffhanger? Let's just start off. Let's get all the negativity out of the way. Here's my issue with most of the mainstream wedding blog, website, services, those kinds of things. Don't get me wrong, there are some amazing resources on a bunch of the most common wedding websites. But what my problem is sometimes, or half the time, heck, maybe even 75% of the time, what they present and the weddings that they showcase are vastly unachievable and unattainable for anyone whose budget is less than $30,000. Like, a lot of the weddings that they feature sometimes feel as though they're really, 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 really expensive. And while that makes them pretty to look at, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to help you actually plan your wedding. Sure, you may glean some inspiration from it, you may get a couple of really good ideas, you may like a piece here or there, but if you are what the wedding industry would call a budget couple, then that means you likely fall into the category of $30,000 or less. And there are some of you who just heard me say that number and thought I would kill to have $30,000. Listen, friend, I totally hear you. I personally was a less than $10,000 budget bride. I'll link that video up here if you want to check that out. So I get it, like, most of what I was planning when I was planning my wedding was like kind of inventing it from scratch because there wasn't really a great resource out there for me that I felt like at the time could really support me as a budget bride. So while those sources, those resources, those websites do have amazing merits to them, they're seriously lacking resources for a lot of people. But in the almost 3 years, yes, we're about to hit the 3-year anniversary here on this channel. In the almost 3 years that I have been doing this based on your feedback and the responses and how immersed I've really gotten into this budget wedding planning community, I've recognized that there is a whole slew, literally last I checked, we're at like just over 85,000 of you that are in this camp of like, I can't afford a planner, or I don't know what I'm doing, or someone please explain this to me. But there's clearly a community here that goes, I don't understand. I need help. I'm balling on a budget. I've got questions. So while those resources are great and they do have their merits, they're sometimes missing the mark on a certain demographic of couples getting married. So we're not knocking them, but that doesn't mean they're for everybody. So now let's talk about resources that are actually helpful for budget couples that honestly not enough people are talking about. Let's be real, like there's just not enough people talking about them. You're going to want to look for things that are attainable, like actually achievable when you're working with a budget. You're going to want to look for things that are real, relatable, understandable, and when your boots finally hit the ground on the whole planning process and you're ready to start booking, you're going to want to make sure that you're looking local as well. And a lot of these concepts are going to kind of overlap a little bit, but that'll make more sense in just a few. While there are quite a few blogs out there that will highlight or showcase weddings of $10,000, $15,000, $3,000, yes, and they're wonderful, which by the way, if at any point you think of another really great free online resource that some of these viewers can benefit from, drop them in the comments down below. Like, let's help each other out. We are all a community here and we're all trying to figure this out together. So if I've missed anything that you think should be on this list, drop it down below. But the best, most well-rounded option for any sort of realistic wedding budget blog feature posts would have to be Jessica Bishop with Budget Savvy Bride. She has a whole section called Real Weddings that you can filter based off of their overall budget and the state within which they got married. So it's not just like you're looking at a $10,000 budget, but that means you can find someone who successfully navigated a $10,000 budget or a $15,000 budget in your home state. You guys, that is mind-blowing. It's not just, hey, look, someone happened to pull this off somewhere in the stratosphere, okay? But no, someone pulled this off in your home state. As with all of these, I will do my best to link them down below as well, because when you are looking at something in your home state, that means that maybe, possibly, perchance, you could book that venue. You could book that photographer. You could book that florist because it's local to you. Instead of like cool inspiration, it's like, hey, there's actual vendors tagged in this post that could end up benefiting you, which I think I'm doing this out of order, but that's totally fine. The next thing that you're going to want to consider is really researching and digging in locally as best as you possibly can. I've mentioned this before, but I'm obviously going to mention it again. I really think that being in a Facebook group with couples planning a wedding in your area is so important. There was this Facebook group I was involved in back when I was living in Southern California that honestly I treated like my wedding Google. I wouldn't even go to Google for things because what you're getting when you Google is you're getting people who have paid to be in those top spots or who have spent a lot of money making sure they have really good SEO. And while we're not knocking them for that, we're proud of their hustle, those costs come from somewhere. So that may mean that they charge a little bit more on their prices to make sure they're on the first page. I don't know, maybe that makes me a negative Nancy, but just kind of thinking through the process of things. And because they've paid to be there, you don't know how good they actually are at what they do. So when you go local and when you go to a Facebook group and ask for advice on a photographer, videographer, venue, you can get realistic feedback from someone who's had experience with that vendor. That, in my opinion, is almost irreplaceable by any other option. Like, that word of mouth is so powerful, especially word of mouth from someone in your area who has worked with a specific vendor or has found a photographer for $1,500 that you were struggling to find yourself. So having that local group to lean on is very important. Secondary to that, using Instagram. Like, I'm a total cheeseball, but once you find a photographer in your area that you like, follow them. Look at the other vendors that they tag. Look at the venues that they tag, because likely if that photographer is in your budget, they're probably working other weddings that are similar to your budget. So if you follow the rabbit hole of kind of tracing all of these accounts, you are going to start to see a lot more vendors that are local to you that are much more likely to fit in your budget than kind of just blindly drawing names out of a hat or blindly typing it into Google. At least then you know that the vendor that you are working with or that you have chosen or that you've started to follow has worked with this person before. Because if they're tagging them, my guess is they weren't that awful to work with. I mean, who knows? But it's a great place to start. Another thing that you can do when the world looks a little bit different than it does right now is bridal expos. I filmed for a bridal expo before. Again, I'll link that up here. And it is a lot. You do need to go in prepared. They can be a little bit exhausting, but they can also be so fruitful. Getting in person, again, when possible, and shaking hands with vendors and getting to talk to them and hearing their pricing and really kind of feeling them out and feeling out their personalities is such a great way to make sure that you are getting a really good person to work with for your wedding day. I'm a big fan of making sure that your personalities mesh, because if you find someone annoying on a normal day, you might find them even extra annoying on the biggest day of your life. So I definitely recommend making sure that you mesh well personality-wise. It is also why that word of mouth train is so important, because you want to make sure that whomever you're working with has a good personality, because this is a big deal and it's a big day. And because currently I know a lot of us aren't in a position to be having in-person expos, if you do want to still immerse yourself in that experience, I highly recommend you check out the Wedding Hacker Expo, because there's so much good information in this expo. It is unreal. There's financial help. There's all the tech that you might need for your event. We're talking about how to build and maintain your budget. We're talking about the tech that you might need. We're also talking about how to make sure your wedding looks gorgeous, but also maintaining that budget. So if you are interested kind of in the expo type experience, definitely check out the Wedding Hacker Expo. Again, I'll link that down below. You will see my face. I am the MC of that event, but it is a killer option, and I know it's helped hundreds of couples as they navigate through all this. So while in-person expos may not be happening, this one's still happening, and it's amazing. Definitely check that one out. And then lastly, you just need people who are gonna be real. We don't need people blowing smoke up you know where. Okay? We don't. We just need real. We need honest advice. We need straightforward. We need no BS. We know that the wedding industry is built on being flowery and pretty, and oftentimes a lot of blush pink. But sometimes we need a little dose of reality, a little bit of grounding, and a little bit of perspective, all while making sure you are being championed to plan out one of, ideally, the best days of your life. And that's where I honestly think that podcasts are an amazing resource. One of my top favorites would have to be Cara with the Wedding Planning Podcast, which Oddly, funnily enough, my very first wedding expo that I did in person, she came up and interviewed me. I don't know, like, she may never see this and she may not know this at all. I don't know if she knows that. Like, she liked my booth and she came up and talked to me about it, and I felt like such a celebrity. This was before I even started this channel, and I was like, I got interviewed for a podcast. Like, so crazy. Gosh, this was early 2016. Was she even podcasting then? I don't know. She interviewed me for something. She is so real and she is so down to earth, and her advice is so on point for budget brides. And then you have the Big Wedding Planning Podcast. Christy and Michelle, we've actually had them over on the Union Podcast, which is my podcast, by the way. The only reason I'm not including it in this list is because it's geared towards wedding business professionals or those who want to get started. So like, while it's great for couples and it's really entertaining, and I know a lot of you are enjoying it, it's not exactly a resource on how to plan your wedding. So, Christy and Michelle are like the realest. They're delightful and they deliver it with no BS attached. So it's another great resource of you just need someone to give it to you straight. You don't need the fluff, you don't need the flowery, and you definitely don't need any more of that pink happening. You just need someone to come alongside you and help you plan your wedding. And then the last podcast I'm going to recommend is Bridechilla. Alicia is just awesome. It's just like she is speaking to a demographic of brides that I feel like so many other platforms are not speaking to. Just really invoking the idea of chill. Like, it doesn't have to all be stressful and it doesn't have to all be chaos. And I think what she's doing and what all these ladies are doing on these podcasts is absolutely phenomenal. Again, if you have another podcast recommendation, drop that down below. Because if we've got podcast people on here, that's for sure a great idea to jump on down there and check those out. And then the last real resource, I mean, I would kind of be remiss if I didn't say this channel. Like, this is, when I got started, no one else was doing this. I think there was one other gal, honestly, in Africa who had done a handful of wedding planning videos. And I don't know if other wedding planners are jumping on the bandwagon. I totally think they should, because they think this is an awesome platform to connect with people. So when I first got started, I was like, why are no wedding planners doing this? Like, this is totally a market that we need to tap into so we can help people. And since then, it's just been a crazy, crazy ride. Like I said, the beginning of this video, we are coming up on 3 years. 3 years of me being on this channel. Almost every single week. I think I've skipped like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks in 3 years. I don't know. This is a great place to come for real advice. Like, it just, part of me feels really uncomfortable because I feel like I'm tooting my own horn, but then the other part of me goes, no, like, there's a reason I'm still doing this, and there's a reason I'm really proud of it, because it's real, it's attainable, it's not going to be BS or sugar-coated, but I definitely am going to be your cheerleader throughout your process. There is one thing about this channel, though, that absolutely sucks. To be totally honest, I am all over the place. I'm completely out of order and I'm totally unorganized. If you watch my videos and like from the time I posted, like watch them in order from when I posted them, there is no chronological order to them whatsoever. It's just like, I feel like talking about this week, which is why in last week's video, I talked about like the one thing you can't plan your wedding without. And that is like a big wedding planning timeline. So like, cool, Jamie, thanks so much. Glad you're making all these videos, but is there like structure to what you do? No. At least there wasn't until now. My team has put together this awesome, amazing, killer resource, you guys, and it's going to radically help so many of you who are planning your weddings. One, we offer a free timeline, like a free downloadable 12-month timeline, where basically tells you what to do at each point in your wedding planning process, what you should be looking for, what you should be researching, what vendors you should be booking, all into manageable chunks so you're not overwhelmed at any point in time. Once you do that, we're gonna go ahead and prompt you and say, okay, what general phase of this timeline do you think you're in? And that's where things get real good, because once you tell us what phase you're in, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we are then going to jump into your inbox with a link to one of my videos when you need it. So with this program, with this platform, we are able to organize all of my videos into chronological order, and on top of that, send you what you need to be watching when you need to be watching it. So you don't have to go through and search through all my videos to try to find what you're supposed to be looking at and when you're supposed to be looking at it. No. And then we send you the videos that you need to be watching at the time that you need to be watching them. It's just so freaking cool, and I'm so excited about it. You guys, when it comes to wedding planning, this whole thing is already so much. Like, there's so much pressure attached to all this. I know, because I hear it from you guys. I hear it from my clients. It's blown up my DMs. It's sent to my inbox. Like, I just hear that there's just so much, and it's so overwhelming, especially on the heels of such a crazy year. Which is why I want to make sure that you guys are aware of resources that are attainable, that are local, that are real, and that you're leaning into those so you don't feel like you're going absolutely insane looking at all these resources being like, why don't I have $50,000 from my my wedding. So if you are interested in getting these videos emailed to you, go to jwcoordination.com/timeline and go ahead, enter your email address, and we will send you the timeline and we will get you set up for absolute freaking success. Absolutely adore you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Again, if you haven't done so, jump on down there, hit that subscribe button. Love to have you hang out with us just a little bit more. And like I've done the last few years, this will be the last video. I'm going to enjoy the holiday season with my fam, wrap up Vlogmas, and enjoy Christmas and New Year's Day. And I will see you guys in the new year. Bye, guys.